Hello, my name is Mike, and if you're watching this video, then you are probably interested in playing D&D and tabletop RPGs. Or someone sent it to you and they're hoping you might be interested. But you've never played before and you don't really know what to expect. The most common questions new players ask are, how do you win? And how long do we play? And that's because D&D is kind of hard to explain because it's not like any other game. It's not like Ticket to Ride or Clue where you sit down one time for a couple of hours for one game and then there's a winner. You can play D&D that way, but there's a lot more to it than that. These days, the best way I can describe D&D, well, I guess the best way is, hey, it's the game they play on Stranger Things. Or, have you ever seen Critical Role or listened to The Adventure Zone? We're playing that. But for those who are unfamiliar or who want to know a little bit more about what to expect, I say this. It's a game where a few players go on an adventure, just like they might in a video game. Only one player, the game master or the dungeon master for D&D, they're doing all the work that a video game would normally do. She's playing every NPC and monster, describing locations and providing quests. The game could last for one day, or a few weeks, or a few months, or a few years, depending on how long the adventure is and how often we play. You don't necessarily win, but there is usually an objective you're trying to complete. But unlike other games, if you fail, that does not mean the story is over. Unlike a video game that restarts or a board game that you can just play again, in D&D, the story keeps going, win or lose. If your characters die, the other characters might try to find someone who can bring you back to life, or use one of their powers to bring you back to life, or go on an epic mission to recover your soul. Or you might just roll up a new character and rejoin the party and go on adventures with your friends who are playing the same characters because they want to keep playing their characters for a while. Or maybe everyone rolls new characters, especially if everybody dies. That's probably a good idea, because that can happen too. So even though this is a collaborative game, you're not all trying to win or lose like in a game like Forbidden Desert. The goal is seriously to have fun every session. And by the end of an adventure, hopefully we've all told a compelling story together and had a lot of fun. As you can probably tell, there is one player, the game master or the dungeon master, who is having a very different experience. They're doing a lot more work before every session, and they're probably trying to keep a lot of different things in their head during the game as well. And this is important, so we're going to make it clear right now. The GM is not your enemy. The players get their fun by going on adventures and killing monsters. But the GM does not have her fun by killing players in exchange. That's not their goal. I mean, unless you all decide that that is the goal. If that's the experience you all want to have, that's fine. That's totally valid. But that's generally not the objective. Instead, the GM's goal is providing a good time for the players. It's more work, but it's also extremely rewarding. Now, this video game analogy really is valuable because it leads to the next big question. What kind of game do you want to play? You can start things off by having a conversation with your friends about what stories you enjoy. And that can lead to what story you want to tell together, and that could lead to, well, what game should you all play? Contrary to popular belief, D&D can't necessarily do everything, and it definitely can't do everything well. There are some games out there that are specifically designed to tell different experiences and have a very different storytelling focus. If characters want a story set in a medieval fantasy setting, but inspired by stories like The Witcher or Dragon Age or Mass Effect or even Saints Row the Third, you could probably run that in D&D. But if you want something closer to those adventures, there may be other games that are a better fit. Dragon Age and Mass Effect have officially licensed RPGs that are designed to replicate those worlds and the storytelling of those games in a way that translates really well to a tabletop game. Saints Row the Third is probably better suited to something like Feng Shui, which is a action movie style RPG. Five Nights at Freddy's could be great for a game like Dread, where you're all pulling blocks from a Jenga tower. There's no dice involved at all. It's an awesome horror game. Spider-Man PS4 literally inspired an independent RPG called Anyone Can Wear the Mask. The Last of Us can be dropped into any zombie-heavy RPG, because there's a lot of those out there. I'd recommend Apocalypse World or maybe All Flesh Must Be Eaten for an ideal zombie hunting experience, but I'll also admit I'm not an expert. Look online, because there's other resources for that as well. There's a Witcher RPG, which is ideal if you want that specific setting and some rules that are designed to replicate the feel of those stories. But I would actually argue that The Witcher is the perfect franchise, both in television and in books and in the video game, to highlight the strengths of D&D. I think they actually do it better than some of the officially licensed D&D video games and movies and books. Well, especially movies. Exploring strange locations, fighting monsters, taking jobs, negotiating moral quandaries with complex NPCs, sometimes dealing with politics and war. That's literally the stuff that D&D does really well. If you have people that you want to start playing tabletop RPGs with, whether you're going to be the player or the game master, start by talking about some of your favorite stories, or the kinds of stories you'd like to play through as a hero, like Star Wars or Star Trek, Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, Marvel or DC. These aren't just nerdy debates, they're actually a great way to express what kind of storytelling you respond to the most. That can lead you best into figuring out what adventure you'd all like to play through together. Next, try to figure out where you'd like to play and how often. Will you play in person or online through apps like Discord or Zoom? Will this be weekly or monthly, or just wait and schedule each game as you all have availability? There's no wrong answer, but I would definitely recommend don't try to play more than weekly, unless you're rotating your game masters, because that's going to lead to a lot of burnout for the person doing most of the work. Plus, if you're at a certain point in your life where you all have jobs or partners, that's a pretty huge time commitment. Finally, I strongly recommend that you and your group have a session 0. This is a time for you all to get together, but you haven't actually started the adventure yet. It's a great chance for the DM to tell you a little bit about the adventure. Maybe just a couple of sentences, no more detail than you might get in a really good movie trailer. And only the most important details about the world of the game, anything the players need to know. This is not a time for the DM to show off that she's developed the calendar for the Empire or the creation myth for the world. Just, if all the humans distrust the elves, then your players need to know that before they start playing a human or an elf. You can also create your characters together in this session if you want. I recommend this because it's a great chance for you to develop your characters together in a way that kind of bounce off each other and feed off each other really well. It also reduces the risk of redundancy. I don't think you should worry too much about what individual classes people play. I don't think you need a healer or must have a cleric. That's some video game mentality that I think you can probably shake yourself of going into D&D, at least into the current edition of D&D, 5th edition. This edition is pretty flexible. If you want, you can all play fighters or wizards, and you probably still have a lot of fun. But if half the party all takes the same skills or has the same spells, then that's going to make your players feel a little bit less special when you're playing. So collaborate and start figuring out ways that you can fill each other's strengths and weaknesses rather than everyone trying to make the same kind of character. When you're at your session 0, you might see some players bringing some books that you've never heard of. Some of them will be published by Wizards of the Coast. They're the ones who make the actual D&D products, but some will be put out by other companies. And they might bring these books because there's something in the book they want to use for their character. Maybe there's a certain race they want to play, or a class, or a subclass, or a background. You don't need to worry about any of that right now. And that might make you think, oh my gosh, there's so much material out there. Don't worry about that. All you need is access to the basic rules. Ideally, you'll have the player's handbook, and everything else beyond that is optional. And I mean that because it's ultimately up to the DM to decide if anything else goes into the game. We'll talk in future videos about whether or not you as a DM should ban people from using other content. That's not the discussion we're having, but we'll talk about that another time if you're curious. Finally, the biggest reason to have a session 0 is to discuss safety tools and lines and veils. There may be subjects that your players may not want to engage with or might prefer to keep abstracted. We'll do a whole other video about this, but for now, all you need to know is that veils are things you'd rather keep abstracted. For example, I'm okay with you saying that you have a romantic encounter with an NPC, but I don't want to sit here and watch you describe your romantic encounter with the NPC because you're my friend, and that's awkward, and we're at my dinner table, and I have to eat here. And lines are things that should not be addressed, that will make you uncomfortable just to be brought up. Not kept abstract like a veil, but that crossing the line, would make you uncomfortable. This is something your DM needs to know before you start playing. They might make up their own adventure, or buy one, or find one online, but either way, if you have a phobia of, let's say, those things that give Peter Parker his powers, then your DM needs to know that before she starts you on an adventure that's set in the city of webs, because you will feel uncomfortable and that will not be fun for everyone. There's more information about safety tools and lines and veils online, and I will do future videos about them as well. Once you actually start playing, and once you have your session 1, you might wonder, what to do? When do you take a turn? Well, when you fight something, there's going to be some more specific rules about everyone taking their turn. Everyone will roll a die, figure out what order people are going to react in, and then that runs a lot more like a traditional game. But when you're not actively fighting something, you can kind of do whatever you want whenever you want. Don't interrupt anybody, be respectful of their time, but if you want to try something, just let the dungeon master know. If it's easy, they'll say, yeah, you can do that. If it's challenging, they'll say, well, you'll probably have to roll a die for it. And then you'll roll a die and you'll probably add something from your character sheet that they think is relevant. Every class is good at fighting. D&D is a game about hunting monsters, but the different classes convey different themes and different fantasies. I don't mean fantasy the genre, although that's sometimes true, but more like different power fantasies, different forms of wish fulfillment. Barbarians lose themselves in battle, going crazy with rage. Bards are like performers who can also cast spells and inspire their allies. Clerics use magic by channeling the power of a god. Druids use magic by channeling the power of the environment and nature. Fighters fight really good with weapons. They're the best at it. Monks fight with martial arts. Paladins fight with weapons, but they also channel the power of a god, like a cleric. Rangers fight with weapons, but they also channel the power of the earth, like a druid. Rogues sneak and pick locks, and they make expert strikes when no one's looking. Sorcerers channel magic they got from somewhere in their background that they don't really fully understand. Warlocks channel magic by making deals with entities, not gods, but something else that they also might not fully understand. And wizards channel magic by very carefully learning the rules and taking lots of notes. Tabletop RPGs like D&D are some of the most fun, most personal experiences you can have with your friends. But if you go online and start looking up advice, like you probably did to find this video, hello, you're going to find a lot of conflicting suggestions. Or according to some people, flat out rules that you must not break. And you, as a new player, might not have the context to parse all this information and figure out what's true, what's accurate, what's relevant, what's good advice versus bad advice. That's okay, because the first rule is the most important. Have fun. Even if you forget, change, or ignore every other rule in every game you play, as long as you and your friends are having fun, you're doing it right. If you want more advice about running D&D or tabletop RPGs, or about being a player, I'll talk about that sometimes too, you can follow my channel. A lot of my videos will talk about D&D because it's the biggest name in town, and statistically it's what most of you are here for. But a lot of this advice translates really well to other RPGs as well. And I will do special episodes about other tabletop RPGs, so you can hear about what else is out there and see what might be the best fit for your group. So if any of that sounds appealing to you, please hit the subscribe button. Please like this video if it's useful. Share it with a friend if there's anyone out there that you think might enjoy this hobby but don't really know where to start and how to begin. That's what this is for. And hit the bell icon if you really want to know when every new video I put out comes out. Thanks so much for watching, and never forget to play fair and have fun.